Hello and welcome to this new video. I hope we can start this new session with a very broad smile. We will be discussing the conquest and we're starting with the conquest of Sindh. In the early 19th century, the English started to show an interest in the Sindh where they enjoyed some trade facilities authorized by a farman of the Mughal emperor in 1630. Since 1630, they had a farman. The farman provided the English with such privileges in the ports of Sindh, which they enjoyed elsewhere. Rise of Talpura's Amirs. We are discussing the Talpura's Amirs. In the 18th century, prior to the rule of Talpura's Amirs, Sindh was ruled by the Kalora chiefs. In 1758, an English factory was built at Thatta owing to a parwana given by the Kalor prince Ghulam Shah. Ghulam Shah gave, owing to a parwana, owing to a parwana given by the Kalor prince Ghulam Shah, a factory was built at Thatta. In 1761, Ghulam Shah, on the arrival of the English resident in his court, not only ratified the earlier treaty, but also excluded other Europeans from trading there. This advantage was enjoyed by the English up to 1775. From 1761 to 1775. When a not too friendly ruler, Sarfaraz Khan, made the English close their factory. This factory, which was given permission by Ghulam Shah, had to be closed when Sarfaraz Khan came into the power in the year of 1770, after 1775. In the 1770s, a Baluch tribe called Talpuras. So Talpuras are Baluchi people, okay, descended from the hills and settled in the plains of Sindh. They were excellent soldiers as well as adapted to hard life. They acquired great influence and soon usurped power in the new region. In 1783, the Talpuras, under the leadership of Mir Fatah Ali Khan, in 1783, completed hold over Sindh and sent the Kalora prince into exile. The then Durrani monarch confirmed the claims of Mir Fath Khan and ordered the latter to share the country with his brothers, Mir's brothers, popularly known as Char Yar. So he had brothers who were known as Char Yar, and this was ordered by Durrani. When Mir Fath died in 1800, the Char Yar divided the kingdoms among themselves, calling themselves the Amirs or Lords of Sindh. These Amirs extended their dominion on all sides. They conquered Amarkot from the Raja of Jodhpur, Karachi from the chief of Luz, and Shikarpur and Bukkar from the Afghans. Gradual ascendancy over Sindh. A common belief in the late 18th century was that Napoleon was conspiring with Tipu Sultan to invade India. In 1799, behind Lord Wellesley's efforts to revive commercial relations. In 1799, who did it? Lord Wellesley. Lord Wellesley's efforts to revive commercial relations with Sindh was the hidden aim to counteract the alliance of the French Tipu Sultan and Shah Zaman, the Kabul monarch. Negotiations were opened with Fath Ali Khan, but under the influence of Tipu Sultan and the jealousy of the local traders, aided by the anti-British party at Hyderabad, the Amir in October 1800 ordered the British agent to quit Sindh within 10 days. The British agent Crowe left Sindh and the company quietly suffered the insult. So they had to leave the Sindh, which is we are discussing about the Hyderabad of Sindh. Treaty of Eternal Friendship. The Treaty of Eternal Friendship. In June of 1807, the alliance of Tilsit with Alexander I of Russia was joined by Napoleon Bonaparte. So Napoleon Bonaparte plus Alexander I of Russia, Alexander I of Russia, and Tilsit. They had made an alliance. The alliance had as one of its conditions a combined invasion of India by the land route. So they wanted to conquer India through the land route. To achieve this, that now the British wanted to create a barrier between Russia and British India. To achieve this, Lord Minto sent 3 delegations under the leadership of various prominent persons to forge alliances. So who comes into picture? Lord Minto, because he is sending people to form alliances now. Accordingly, Metcalfe was sent to Lahore, Elphinstone to Kabul, and Malcolm to Tehran. Sindh was visited by Nicholas Smith, who met the Amirs to conclude a defensive arrangement. After negotiations, the Amirs agreed to a treaty, their first ever treaty with the English. After professing eternal friendship, both the sides agreed to exclude the French from Sindh and to exchange agents at each other's court. The treaty was renewed in 1820 with the addition of an article excluding the Americans and resolving some border disputes on the side of Kutch after the final defeat of the Maratha Confederacy in 1818. So this is why the Treaty of Eternal Friendship was signed, which essentially was the first one between the English and the Amirs. The Treaty of 1832. In 1832, William Bentinck sent Colonel Pottinger to Sindh to sign a treaty with the Amirs. The provisions of the treaty were as follows. So he sent, now the time has come for William Bentinck. In 1832, sent Colonel Pottinger to Sindh to sign a treaty with the Amirs. The provisions of the treaty were: first, free passage. Free passage through Sindh would be allowed to the English traders and travellers, and the use of Indus for trading purposes. However, no warships would ply, nor any materials for war would be carried. Second, no English merchant would settle down in Sindh, and passports would be needed for travellers. So, you needed passport. Third, the tariff rates could be altered by the Amirs if found high, and no military dues or tolls would be demanded. So tariff rates were under the discretion of Amirs. Fourth, the Amirs would work with the Raja of Jodhpur to put down the robbers of Kutch. So there was some kind of a coordination commitment with Raja of Jodhpur against the robbers of Kutch. And the fifth one is, the old treaties were confirmed and the parties would not be jealous of each other. The old treaties were confirmed. Okay, this is another thing. Now we will be discussing Lord Auckland and Sindh. Lord Auckland and Sindh. Lord Auckland, who became the Governor General in 1836, looked at Sindh from the perspective of saving India. So he was the Governor General in 1836. Looked at Sindh from the perspective of saving India from a possible Russian invasion. So now it is part of the Russian invasion and wished to obtain a counteracting influence over the Afghans. Ranjit Singh in Punjab was strong enough to resist coercion in this regard, but the Amirs were not. Thus, the English view was that they had to consolidate their position in Sindh as a necessary first step for their plans on Afghanistan. They got an opportunity when Ranjit Singh captured a frontier town of Sindh. Rojhan and Pottinger was sent to Hyderabad to sign a new treaty with the Amirs. The treaty offered protection to the Amirs on the condition that the company troops would be kept in the capital at Amir's expense, or alternatively, the English would be given suitable concessions in return. The Amirs initially refused but later agreed reluctantly to sign the treaty in 1838 when the possibility of Ranjit Singh getting help from others was pointed out to them. The treaty permitted the English to intervene in the dispute between the Amirs and the Sikhs, as also to establish the presence of a British resident who could go anywhere he liked, escorted by the English troops. Thus, Sindh was turned into a British protectorate in 1838. So basically, Amirs were fearing that Ranjit Singh, who was a powerful ruler of Punjab, was going to attack them, and they sought the safety of British and signed the treaty with them and allowed a permanent establishment of English troops or to give some kind of concessions in return. And then it became a protectorate in 1838. Tripartite Treaty of 1838. This was a tripartite treaty. To address the Afghan problem as the British imagined it, the company resorted to further duplicity. Firstly, they persuaded Ranjit Singh to sign a tripartite treaty in June 1838, agreeing to British mediation in his disputes with the Amirs, and then made Emperor Shah Shuja give up his sovereign rights on Sindh, provided the arrears of tribute were paid. The exact amount of the tribute was to be determined by the English, whose main objective was to obtain finances for the Afghan. This tripartite agreement that we have discussed, that we are discussing, actually, this one. So he made Emperor Shah Shuja give up his sovereign rights on Sindh, provided the arrears of tribute were paid. The exact amount of the tribute was to be determined by the English, whose main objective was to obtain finances for the Afghan adventure and obtain so much of the Amir's territory as would secure a line of operation against Afghanistan through Sindh. Sindh therefore had to accept the subsidiary alliance in 1839. The company intended to persuade or compel the Amirs to pay the money and also to consent to the abrogation of that article in the Treaty of 1832 which prohibited the movement of English troops in Sindh by land or by river. B.L. Grover writes, under the threat of superior force, the Amirs accepted a treaty in February 1839 by which a British subsidiary force had to be stationed in Shikarpur and Bukkar, and the Amirs had to be stationed were to be stationed, and they were to pay rupees 3 lakh annually for the maintenance of the company's troops. I think I will like to end this video here itself, and in the coming video, in the next video, I would rather focus on using this in a smaller way, completing this in a smaller way. So the tripartite treaty of 1838. The tripartite treaty of 1838 is an interesting one, because to address the Afghan problem, the company resorted to further duplicity. Firstly, they persuaded Ranjit Singh to sign a tripartite treaty in June 1838, agreeing to British mediation in his disputes with the Amirs. And then they made Emperor Shah Shuja give up his sovereign rights on Sindh, provided the arrears of tribute were paid. The exact amount of the tribute was to be determined by the English, whose main objective was to obtain finances for the Afghan adventure and obtain so much of the Amir's territory as would secure a line of operation against Afghanistan through Sindh. Sindh accepted the subsidiary alliance in 1839. The company intended to persuade or compel the Amirs to pay the money and also to consent to the abrogation of that article in the Treaty of 1832, which prohibited the movement of English troops in Sindh by land or river. B.L. Grover writes, under threat of superior force, the Amirs accepted a treaty in February 1839, by which a British subsidiary force had to be stationed at Shikarpur and Bukkar, and the Amirs of Sindh were to pay rupees 3 lakh annually for the maintenance of the company's troops. Henceforth, the Amirs were debarred from having any negotiations with foreign states without the knowledge of the company, and further they were to provide storeroom at Karachi for the company's military supplies, besides abolishing all tolls on the Indus and furnishing an auxiliary force for the Afghan war if called upon to do so. So basically they ensured that all kinds of requests they had to have an invasion on Afghanistan, they could be met through the Amirs. So they had ensured that much. Now the capitulation of Sindh. The first Anglo-Afghan war in 1839 to 42. The first Anglo-Afghan war. Yes, the first Anglo-Afghan war fought on the soil of Sindh was never liked by the Amirs of Sindh. Neither did they like the presence of the British troops in their region. However, under the treaty, they were asked to pay for all of this, which they did. They were not rewarded for or thanked for their services, but were charged with hostility and disaffection against the British government. The Amirs were charged with treasonable activities against the British, and Ellenborough, placed in a precarious position due to the Afghan war reverses, sent Outram to Sindh to negotiate a new treaty. Under this treaty, the Amirs were required to cede important provinces as the price of their past transgressions, to supply fuel to the company's steamers plying on the Indus, and to stop minting coins. Furthermore, in a succession dispute, the English intervened through Napier and started a war when the Amirs rose in revolt. The whole of Sindh capitulated within a short time, and the Amirs were made captives and banished from Sindh. In 1843, under Governor General Ellenborough, Sindh was merged into the British Empire, and Charles Napier was appointed as its first governor. Charles Napier, please remember this name. He was the first governor after the annexation of Sindh to the British Empire. Okay. Now, what are the criticisms of this conquest? First, the historians generally condemn the acquisition of Sindh by the British in strong words. The causes for annexation were deliberately manufactured. Like many episodes in the British conquest of India, the Afghan war is also a tale of bullying. So, Afghan war is a tale of bullying, tactics and deceit. However, in the instance of the first Afghan war, the English suffered terribly at the hands of the Afghans, with a corresponding loss of prestige. To compensate for this, they annexed Sindh, which prompted Elphinstone to comment. Coming from Afghanistan, it put one in mind of a bully who has been knocked in the street and went home to beat his wife in revenge. So that's how they criticize the conquest of Sindh. Okay, in the coming videos, we will be discussing the conquest of Punjab. I hope you have liked this video. Please stay happy, stay hydrated, take care.